This episode is brought to you by Fortis Mentis Psychiatry, where Black and Brown girls can find individual therapy, mindfulness and meditation coaching, medication management, and case management. To learn more, go to fortismentispsychiatry.com/safe place.
Hey girl, welcome back to Safe Place for Brown Girls. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Jude Estime, and I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. This is your space to talk about healing, mental health, and growing into your best version of yourself without shame or judgment. Today's episode is a reminder that it's never too late to change direction. We're talking about pivoting in career, in relationships, and how you see yourself, and why it takes both courage and clarity to make that shift. My guest today is Dshawn Russell, a 55-year-old entrepreneur, mother, and survivor who completely redefined her life after starting over in her 40s. She shares how she learned to advocate for herself, to rebuild her own identity, and walk in her own purpose, even when the road was uncertain. So, sis, if you've been feeling stuck, lost, or unsure of what to do next, this episode is for you. Dshawn's story will inspire you to listen to your inner voice, to trust your faith, and to take one bold step toward the life you truly deserve, the life you want. Let's get into it. Hey, Dshawn, thank you so much for coming to Safe Place for Brown Girls. You know, sometimes in life, we all have to pivot. So tell us about your journey about pivoting.
Hi, Kathleen. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dshawn Russell. I'm the CEO of Southern Elegance Candle Company. And the main thing, there have been several points in my life where I've had to pivot, usually around the typical kinds of things that people do. So first, I was working in education and I decided that I wanted to start my own business. I fell into the hype a few years ago, about 10 years ago, of everybody wanting to be an entrepreneur. So that was one of my first pivots. Prior to that, of course, marriage, that's always a pivot for people. I had a baby at 40. That was another huge pivot. Started my company, another huge pivot. Got a divorce, another huge pivot. Turned 50. Another huge pivot, and ended up going back to work because I needed insurance, which was another huge pivot. So throughout life, I think that sometimes we don't look at the trajectory of life and look at all of the times that we have to pivot, because sometimes pivoting is just a normal part of life's journey.
Okay, so how do you know the difference between a pivot and just an adjustment in life?
An adjustment keeps you on the same path.
Okay.
So, when I was teaching and I moved to another school, that's an adjustment. I might not like the kids, might not like the principal, parents a little crazy, but I still love being in education. So I continued down that path of education. Or when I went from being a teacher to an assistant principal, that's an adjustment, still working in education. But when I decided that I want something totally different in life, I wanted totally different outcomes than what I was getting in education, that is a pivot. When you are looking to do something totally different from where you are currently, you're looking around, you're feeling stuck, you can't see how you're going to continue to do this just one more day. You cannot even fathom the thought of continuing to do it. And then you make a decision that changes the whole trajectory of your life. I think that is the difference between an adjustment and a pivot. Having a baby is a pivot. It changes the whole trajectory of your life. Getting married, pivot, changes the whole trajectory of your life. But again, there are a lot of times we have to pivot in life.
So Dshawn, talk to us about, why do people have such a hard time pivoting?
A lot of times when people have to make even small adjustments, they're in a place where they're having to make a decision. You're feeling stuck. You're feeling like you need to change. But when it's time to make a pivot, it's like being so bound in a situation. You know what I'm saying? So you're already feeling like you can't move, you can't breathe, your stress is through the roof, and you cannot see your way forward. And so then to make a huge decision, a lot of times we just make little decisions because we can see, okay, I might not be happy at this place. Maybe if I go to another place and do the same thing, I would be happy. So you kind of know what it is that you're getting ready to do. So you may be stressed, but you're thinking, if I go into this new position, I'll be a little bit less stressed. But you still kind of feel like you got a grip on it. When you make a pivot, though, and you're looking for totally different outcomes, in one hand, you're saying, do I deal with the devil I know or the devil I don't? And so when you're making a pivot, sometimes you have no idea what you're getting ready to go into. And so a lot of people are very afraid of things that they don't have any control over. So when you're making a pivot, you might change jobs totally, move to a new city totally. You have no idea what to expect. And so for a lot of times, that fear of the unknown really keeps people stuck. They are unhappy, but they are afraid of being unhappier because they don't know what else is out there.
So what are your suggestions about battling that fear?
Do it scared. I think that first off, in life, you got to do it scared anyway. You never know what you're going to wake up to tomorrow. So if you know that you're sitting in a place and you're very unhappy, and a lot of times women, we have a tendency to push down our intuition. So we're waking up every day and our body is literally screaming at us, make a change, but we're thinking somehow or another, this particular situation or relationship or whatever it is going to get better. This job is going to get better. Maybe if I play a little bit smaller, maybe if I'm a little bit quieter. So rather than expanding our world and trying something new, we kind of fall back onto what society has taught us to do. Be a little quieter, be a little smaller, be a little softer. But you can't pivot and go out into the world and do new things being quiet, small, and playing it safe. So we always have that contradiction like going on in our bodies, especially if you are a Black woman, because you never want to be too loud, too angry, too aggressive, too. The world tells us all the time we are too much. And so to think that you're in this position, and you're like, I want to do something different. I want more in life, but I don't want people to think that I want too much, So we often live in that space of going back and forth between staying small and being unhappy or being too much and wanting too much happiness, too much freedom, too much money. And we often end up playing it safe in the space where we are.
Oh, wow, that was powerful. So, Dshawn, if I find myself in a moment where I need to pivot, what would be the first thing that you would advise me to do?
I think people should look at their options. I live in a very small town, right? And so, like, literally, when I say small, it's like 5,000 people in the whole town, maybe 50,000 people in the county. My options are limited, So you have to really assess where you are. So when I wanted to start a business, I had to say, what kind of business can I start here? The internet makes everybody feel like everything is accessible to everyone all the time at every level. And it's not. Unfortunately, it's just not. We don't all have access to the same things. So you kind of have to look at your current situation and say, what is it that I want? What is it that I really want? And then secondly, you have to say, can I get that here? So for me, I said I wanted to start a business. I looked at the types of businesses that I could start, and I started a candle company, right? A home fragrance company. I figured it would be a nice little thing to do to supplement my income. And then I said, oh, this can take over my income. And then I wanted to grow it, but I couldn't grow it because I'm in a small town. We only have so many people that can work at a company. We only have so many buildings that I can move the company into. And so I hit certain roadblocks, and that's just the reality of the situation. The main thing, though, and I want to make sure that I'm saying this in a way that is empowering and not making people feel like they don't have options. Sometimes you have to make a decision and then make the decision right. We're always looking for the right decision, like wanting to feel like everything that we're doing is the right choice. Sometimes you just have to make a choice based off of the current situation that you are in, and then make that decision the right decision for you in that moment. Later on, you can make a different decision, but making the decision and starting the whole process, starting the journey is the first step. So I don't want anybody to ever feel like I'm saying, oh, this is all that you got. No, this is what you have in this moment. Make a decision in this moment. Move forward with that decision. There were times when I looked at the company and I realized I could have moved the company to a different city and grew it even larger and had more resources. But there were certain consequences that would come along with that, like pulling my son out of a school, moving him out of the neighborhood where we live. And so I had to make a choice. I had to make a decision and then make that the right decision for me and my family. So getting mired down in the muck of, is this the right decision? Is this the right time? Can I do this? Do it and then make that decision work for you. That's just in every aspect of life, not just business, not just family, not just friends. Make a decision and then make that the right decision for you.
Now, you talked about motherhood and your family. How do you juggle it all?
Poorly. So, I don't think that there's ever a time in life that a woman is going to feel like everything is just flowing it's a third, or a half, or, half and half, or quarter, it's never going to be like that where everything just balances out to 100%. Everything is balanced perfectly. Like there's never a time. There's time when working takes up all of my time. And then there's times when I have to put work on the back burner and say, my son has a football game and I need to go to it. I need to be there in the stands cheering him on. So everything is going to have to wait. But then there are football games that I might miss for my son when I have large orders that are on very tight deadlines that have to go out. So I think that once you establish expectations, you make the decision, you make that the right decision for you. You establish expectations for all of the people around you. People have a tendency to give you what you need if you establish those boundaries. And then it goes back to making a decision and making it the right decision for you. If people cannot respect what you are trying to do, that goes back to you're having to make some hard decisions about the people that you have in your life. There came a time when I had to have a conversation with my son. This is what I do. You can Google me. You might not be able to Google your friends' moms, so your mother life looks a little bit differently than other people's moms' lives. You have to understand that. And so he and I had to just have a real conversation about what did that mean in the big scheme of things? Where does he fit and where do I fit? Where does his dad fit? Like, how does this all fit together? Once we had that conversation, things kind of smoothed out. Is he disappointed at times? Yes, but we all are. Such is life sometimes, but you have to have those kind of conversations with the people that are in your life so that all of those expectations are clear.
So Dshawn, how did faith help you push through fear and uncertainty?
I believe that everything in life in that moment is exactly how it is supposed to be in that moment. So that is a fundamental belief of mine. And I also believe that whatever decision I make is the right decision. And I know for a lot of people that just sounds like insane. Like, how can you always know that you're making the right decision? Because I'm making the decision and I'm making the decision for me. And I trust myself enough to make a good decision for me. I often talk about the current version of me, the past version of me, and the future version of me. And I always say that this current version of me need to make decisions so that the future version of me will look back and thank me for the decisions that I made. And so any decision I make, I always say, would the future version of me appreciate that? Generally speaking, yes. Sometimes I might make a decision that's going to make life a little bit difficult, but I also trust that version of her in the future to make a good decision. So it's just like I have this continuum that I live on, that I always trust the decisions that I make. Even if I make a bad one, I trust myself enough that I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make it right. I will figure out how to get through it. And so a hardcore faith in who you are and what you are capable of is really what you need. The other part to that is, they say God gives battles to the strongest soldiers. Like, I just feel like I'm one of them strong soldiers. So if you don't have that type of belief in yourself, you're just going to be stuck, period. Any decision that you make, having a baby is a big decision. You got to believe that you are strong enough to balance motherhood and to take this little human being and turn him into a good person. Getting married is a tough decision. You got to really believe that this person that you're choosing to share your life with, like, there is nothing bigger than saying, I have one life and I'm going to share it with you. We're going to do this thing together. So all of these are like really big decisions that you make. But we don't like stop to think that, hey, this is really a huge decision that I'm making. But that trust in yourself when you make it, some of us just have that inherent kind of, I think that I can do this. And even if I can't do it, I think I can figure out a way to make it work. You have to have that as you are moving through life.
So, Dshawn, what I hear is that you're telling women that we should have more confidence, trust ourselves. What are some practical ways that women can start to trust themselves or be more confident?
I think that most women need to stop being critical of the decisions that they make. The moment that we stop looking at the things that went wrong and focus on all of the things that are right. And again, it goes back to like we're always comparing ourselves to everything all the time because we have access to all of this information. So if you're comparing yourself to, people that live in, like, I live in a small town. I've said that before. If I'm looking at my life and saying, why didn't I go out to a 5-star restaurant last night? We ain't got none. So then it becomes an unfair comparison. I remember when they were having a dialogue on, is going to a fast food restaurant a good first date? All we got here are fast food restaurants, so if I engaged in that kind of dialogue, I wouldn't have the partner that I have now because we're going to go to Bojangles because that's all we got to eat here, so you really have to stop that comparison of other people's lives and other people's money and other people's cars and look at your life right now and say, have I made good decisions for where I am in my life right now? And so if you look at all of that and you say, hey, I've made the best decisions that I can for where I am right now, and I still want more, then you have to be really practical about what you want more of. Now, at some point in time, I would love to pack everything up and move to a European country and live on the beach. Is that practical right now? Absolutely not. It might not ever be practical. That's just like a pipe dream that I have. I have to be practical right now. So if I'm looking at people that have made the leap and say, oh, my little small town life is not good enough, then I'm going to always feel like less than. But I look around at my life and I say, wow, look at all of the things that I've accomplished here. I have a healthy, happy child. I'm in a relationship. People be like, is it a healthy relationship? I'm like, it's with a man. So it's a relationship. I'm in a relationship. It's as happy as it can be, I have a job that I'm happy to have a job, especially in this economy. I have a side hustle that's literally a multi-million-dollar side hustle. Are there other things that I would love to have? Yes. But given what I have, this is pretty amazing. And I don't think we stop to look at our lives and say, the things that I've accomplished with what I have been given, how amazing is this? So that you really have to just take stock of where you are and say, where I am, is this the best that I can create in this situation? If not, then create the best in that situation first before you think about making bigger, bolder moves.
So how can our viewers reframe failure as part of the growth process?
There's no failure. There really is no failure in life. Failure really, I heard the quote, failure is just a redirection. Failure is protection. Like, we hear all of those things. Again, we have this sense of right and wrong in life. And I only have a sense of right and right. So I make a decision. It didn't go the way that I wanted it to. So I'm going to make it righter. So I'm going to fix it because I trust myself to do that. So whenever I make a decision, it's not going the way that I anticipated. I trust myself enough to say, hey, this is not going how I want it. Let me fix it. Let me make it go the way that I want. So all my decisions just become the right decision for me in that moment. And sometimes we make a decision and it's right in that moment. And then a year later, we realize, hey, I need to make another decision. The future me will handle the decisions that the current me is making. And I can always look back at the past me and be like, hey, girl, you did it. You made a decision that set us up so that we can move forward.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Dshawn. So, Dshawn, can you tell us what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So I'm glad you asked. Of course, you can always check Southern Elegance Candle Company for all of your home fragrance needs. And I will be starting a podcast, Grit and Good Sense. So hopefully my first episode will be dropping soon. And it is going to be on all of the streaming podcasts. So it's going to be Grit and Good Sense with Dshawn Russell.
We will be sure to tune in. Thank you so much for coming, Dshawn.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for listening today. If you've been carrying the weight of staying in something that no longer serves you, and I know that's something that a lot of us suffer from, I hope Dshawn's story reminds you that you don't have to stay stuck. You can pivot, you can grow, you can start again. Whether it's journaling about what feels off or not right, setting a new boundary, or exploring a different path, take one intentional step this week. You deserve it. You're worth it. You deserve a life that aligns with who you really are. And if you want to keep this conversation going, come connect with me on Instagram at Kathleen Jude Estime. I'd love to hear what resonates with you and what you're ready to change. This is your safe place and you're always welcome here.
This episode was brought to you by Fortis Mentis Psychiatry, where Black and brown girls can find individual therapy, mindfulness and meditation coaching, medication management, and case management. To learn more, go to fortismentispsychiatry.com/safe place.